Caitlin Clark is in the vicinity at a private event with Michael Jordan. Now, it's hard to believe that they're not talking basketball. We know it has to do with basketball a little bit.
Caitlin Clark wasn't supposed to be there. Not at Grove 23, Michael Jordan's secret golf fortress where only billionaires, legends, and a handful of handpicked athletes ever step foot. The place is so exclusive that even some PGA pros have never seen it. So when a few blurry photos surfaced showing Clark walking side by side with the GOAT himself, the internet went feral. At first, most assumed it was fake. Some influencer lookalike, maybe an AI edit. But the details lined up the Florida sun, the Grove's unmistakable palm-lined fairways, and most telling of all, Jordan's unmistakable gait. The man who built basketball's empire was there laughing, talking, and handing a basketball to the WNBA's most electrifying rookie. Eyewitnesses claimed the two spoke quietly for nearly an hour, occasionally stopping to gesture toward the green. Then, just as suddenly, a small white drone hovered overhead, Grove's signature drink delivery system. Jordan waved it off, but not before fans online had freeze-framed the moment, dissecting every pixel like detectives on a crime scene. Why was Caitlin there? Nobody knew. She wasn't scheduled for a public event. The WNBA had no media appearance on her calendar, yet there she was, the league's new face inside Jordan's private kingdom. Almost instantly, hashtags like Clark23 and GOAT meet GOAT began trending. Journalists scrambled to verify the footage while analysts debated whether this was mentorship marketing or something far bigger. This wasn't a random sighting, one reporter tweeted. It looked orchestrated, like the start of something planned. Within hours, every sports network had the same question plastered across the screen. What was Caitlin Clark doing with Michael Jordan, and what does it mean for the future of basketball? Grove 23 isn't just a golf course, it's Michael Jordan's personal laboratory for greatness. Tucked deep in South Florida, the compound looks peaceful from above, but every inch of it was designed to test the people allowed inside. Cameras line the fairways, drones deliver cocktails mid-round, and every guest knows that when you tee off next to Jordan, you're not just playing golf, you're stepping into a psychological arena. They call it Slaughterhouse 23. The nickname started as a joke among NBA friends who couldn't keep up with Jordan's intensity, but it stuck for a reason. No one leaves without being tested. Jordan watches everything, your focus, your body language, how you handle failure. If you crumble, you never get invited back. That's what makes Caitlin Clark's presence so striking. Grove 23 isn't a photo op venue. It's a gatekeeper's kingdom where only those who earn Jordan's respect cross the line. Billionaires, all-stars, Olympic gold medalists, and now a 22-year-old rookie from the WNBA. Her invitation alone said something loud. Jordan saw something in her. Not just skill, but that same fire he built his legacy on. Those who were there said Caitlin held her own. Calm, focused, unbothered by the weight of the moment. She wasn't acting like a guest, she looked like someone being evaluated. And Jordan, ever the silent judge, seemed to be taking notes the entire time. By the time they left the 18th hole, the atmosphere had shifted. This wasn't two athletes sharing a round. It felt like an initiation, a private ceremony between eras. Because Grove 23 doesn't just reveal who can golf, it reveals who's built to lead. But this wasn't just about golf, something else happened on that course. The internet didn't just react, it detonated. Late that night, a 15-second clip appeared on X, posted by an anonymous account with only a few hundred followers. It showed Caitlin Clark standing on the driving range beside Michael Jordan, bouncing a basketball off the turf before taking a smooth, familiar step-back jumper. Jordan, arms crossed, watched closely, then gave a slow, unmistakable nod. That single motion, the nod of approval from the GOAT, sent shockwaves through the sports world. Within minutes, the post hit 1 million views. By sunrise, it had gone global. Hashtags like Cots, Clark, X Jordan, Hawk, GOAT meets. GOAT and Air Clark flooded every platform. Fans called it the most iconic crossover since Space Jam. TikTok spliced Jordan's 90s highlights with Clark's college buzzer beaters. Memes exploded, some joking that MJ just drafted her to Team Air, others claiming it was the birth of a new dynasty. But beyond the memes, something deeper was happening. Every sports outlet from ESPN to Bleacher Report paused their programming to analyze the footage frame by frame. They matched Jordan's outfit to past sightings at Grove 23. They zoomed in on the court, confirmed the timestamp, even compared Caitlin's hair tie to one she'd worn at her last game. It was real, or at least real enough that nobody could dismiss it anymore. And that's when the narrative started spinning out of control. Reporters couldn't reach the WNBA for comment. Nike stayed silent. Jordan's reps refused to confirm or deny. In the absence of answers, the speculation grew louder. Was this mentorship, a business meeting, or the start of something that could change the entire balance of women's sports? Because once the clip hit the internet, control of the story slipped away from the league. Inside WNBA headquarters, phones were ringing non-stop. Executives who had spent months trying to craft Caitlin Clark's image, balancing her marketability with locker room politics, suddenly realized they were no longer in control. The viral clip with Michael Jordan wasn't just a story, it was a signal, and it came from outside the league's carefully built walls. An emergency conference call was held before dawn. PR teams scrambled to coordinate talking points, but every narrative they tried to spin fell apart the moment they opened social media. Clark wasn't just trending, she was dominating. Overnight, she had gone from the league's brightest rookie to an independent phenomenon orbiting beyond their reach. And Jordan's involvement, it made her untouchable. Behind the scenes, anxiety turned into resentment. Some veteran players who had fought for years to build the WNBA's foundation whispered that the league was becoming the Caitlin Clark show. Others went further, calling it the Caitlin Clark League. They didn't mean it as a compliment. To them, her sudden alliance with Jordan wasn't just unfair, it was disruptive. It blurred the line between league star and global brand. Team managers worried that sponsors might redirect deals directly to Clark instead of through the league. Executives feared that every rule about image rights, branding, and collective bargaining could be tested overnight. And perhaps worst of all, fans weren't siding with the league, they were siding with her. By the afternoon, the damage control emails stopped. Everyone knew there was no containing it now. Jordan had stepped into their world and rewritten the hierarchy with one quiet meeting. But behind all the chaos, the real story was happening off camera, one conversation that would change everything. Reports from that day say the real story began after the final hole was played. When the small group of guests dispersed, Michael Jordan asked Caitlin Clark to stay behind. They walked toward the clubhouse, then disappeared into a glass-walled lounge overlooking the course. The door closed, and for nearly an hour, no one else was allowed in. What was said in that room remains a mystery, but insiders have pieced together fragments of it. Jordan, known for rarely mentoring anyone outside his inner circle, reportedly spoke with her like an equal. He told her the truth. Only legends understand. Greatness always comes with backlash. That every pioneer is tested not by applause, but by resistance. Witnesses describe the tone as intense, but respectful. Clark listened quietly occasionally, nodding her hands folded over her knees. By the end of the talk, one source said she looked different. Not nervous, not overwhelmed, but focused. Something in her had shifted. Then came the gesture no one expected. Jordan pulled out a sleek black basketball embossed with the Jumpman logo and a single line etched in silver. "Your era starts when you decide." He handed it to her without ceremony, as if passing a key. It wasn't a contract, it wasn't a deal, it was a message. Minutes later, Clark left. Grove 23 through the side entrance, her demeanor calm, her eyes locked forward. No press, no entourage, no words, just purpose. Those who saw her that day said it felt like watching a torch being passed in silence, a private coronation disguised as mentorship. And that message would echo louder than anyone expected. Within 24 hours, the story detonated again. It started with whispers, a screenshot of an internal Nike email thread leaked to Reddit hinting at a new co-branded performance project between Jordan Brand and Caitlin Clark. A few hours later, sneaker forums began circulating a blurry image of white prototypes with a faint glowing Jumpman logo on the heel. The rumor mill spun so fast that by morning, Doris Air Clark was trending in 10 different countries. Then, Caitlin herself poured gasoline on the fire. She posted a single Instagram story, a dimly lit gym, her lacing up an unknown pair of sneakers, captioned only with 3 words, "Work in silence." No tags, no emojis, just that. The post vanished within an hour, but not before millions of screenshots spread across the internet. Sports media went into full-blown frenzy. ESPN analysts debated whether she was about to become the first woman in history with her own Jordan line. Twitter flooded with theories. Some said Jordan was personally mentoring her brand strategy. Others claimed Nike was panicking over a power shift inside its own empire. Even former NBA players weighed in, calling it the most significant crossover in decades. Sneakerheads dissected every pixel of the prototype image, comparing stitching patterns and sole shapes to previous Jordan models. One insider told Complex, "If this is real, it's not just a shoe, it's a statement." Suddenly, Caitlin wasn't just the face of the WNBA, she was the face of evolution itself, standing at the crossroads between legacy and revolution. But while fans celebrated the possible collaboration, the league's foundation started to crack. By the next week, the WNBA was split down the middle, pride on one side, panic on the other. Executives didn't know whether to celebrate or strategize. On paper, a partnership between Caitlin Clark and Michael Jordan could elevate women's basketball to unprecedented levels. But behind closed doors, they feared what that kind of independence meant. If one player could command more influence than the entire league, what power did the league really have? Younger players saw it differently. To them, Clark wasn't breaking rules, she was breaking barriers. In locker rooms across the country, rookies and second-year players whispered about the Jordan standard, imagining a world where women could control their own image brand and destiny without league mediation. Veterans, however, weren't all thrilled. Some felt overshadowed, their years of struggle now reduced to a single viral star. Others quietly warned that putting too much power in one player's hands could divide teams and fan bases. Meanwhile, the fans had already chosen their side. Social media crowned Michael Jordan the real commissioner. Memes flooded timelines, Jordan sitting behind a WNBA desk, Caitlin holding the league trophy. It was half joke, half truth. The economic shockwave hit fast. Ticket prices for Indiana Fever games doubled overnight. Jordan merchandise, especially women's apparel, sold out in hours. Sponsors who had once ignored the WNBA were suddenly begging for meetings. And marketing experts predicted that if a Jordan-Clark deal became official, it could inject millions into women's sports within months. Inside the league's boardrooms, that surge felt less like progress and more like an earthquake. The foundation of control was shifting, and everyone knew it. And then came the moment that proved this wasn't hype, it was history unfolding. It happened quietly. No press conference, no announcement, no leaks. The official Jordan brand Instagram account simply posted a black and white photo. Caitlin Clark standing at mid-court holding a basketball under one arm, her head bowed in focus. The caption read, just 3 words, "Legacy recognizes legacy." No tag, no date, no explanation. Within minutes, the image shattered the internet. Fans flooded the comments calling it the passing of the torch, a symbolic bridge between eras, the player who defined basketball and the one who might redefine it. Every sports outlet picked it up. ESPN called it a cultural moment. The New York Times described it as a silent revolution in sneakers and symbolism. Even NBA stars reposted it, writing things like, "MJ just blessed the future." But behind the glamour, another rumor began spreading. Jordan wasn't stopping at endorsement. Insiders claimed he was planning to launch a joint training academy with Clark, a new hub to mentor young women in basketball branding and leadership. If true, it would bypass the WNBA, entirely creating a system owned by athletes, not executives. Inside league offices, panic turned to resignation. The control narrative years in the making had officially collapsed. Caitlin Clark was no longer just a rookie in their system. She was her own system. A brand, a movement, and now potentially a legacy. Commentators began calling it the Legacy War, not a fight between Jordan and the WNBA, but between the old model of control and the new model of independence. Caitlin didn't say a word. She didn't need to. Her silence echoed louder than any press release. Because this wasn't rebellion, it was evolution, the moment women's basketball stopped asking for permission.